Welcome to the south-afrifur podcast here at 8 o'clock CEAT, 7 o'clock CET, 6 o'clock, GMT, and 1 p.m. EST. This evening we have our guest GreenReaper, the owner of Furry, owner of WikiFur, and I think, Inkbunny, sorry, my...
had Furry last week.
Stuck in my head.
Yeah, we had Furry last week.
Yes, I had Furry last week. Linked to no, it isn't. WikiFur as well as Flayrah, and obviously co-hosting with us this evening is Scratch. Anpu will most probably be with us again next weekend for a very, very special broadcast, but we'll get around to that later in the show. So yeah, welcome GreenReaper once again onto our podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here again.
I always make a mistake, Mike. Yeah. So, as it goes, south-afrifur wants it rough. You heard it here first, folks. Sorry for the small delay in the podcast intro, but yeah, welcome to everybody from First Stream as well as Furry FM. Scratch, can you confirm that we're on Furry FM right now?
Yes, I believe that we are.
Cool, great stuff. All right, so sort of carrying on with a trend here for the past 2 weeks. We had Tumul, obviously, from Furry last weekend, and now obviously we have GreenReaper from Inkbunny. We're going to be talking about sort of mostly Inkbunny and also maybe his obviously the other projects that he's also running, Flayrah, as well as WikiFur.
Yeah.
And sort of how it became. I know that it sort of was semi-thrown into your lap, I believe, at times.
Yeah. So, yeah, Inkbunny in particular was kind of, well, it wasn't thrown at me. It was sort of a transition thing. So WikiFur was me to start with, and Flayrah was more, oh my goodness, they're going to shut it down and just throw it all away. That would be bad. So I've got to do something. Whereas Inkbunny was more, I came on as a moderator, as a member of staff. Initially, actually, I was just helping with the security of the site and trying it out and that sort of thing. It was like, private beta. Do you want to give it a go? Okay. Hey, you're really, you do admin stuff elsewhere. Would you like to come on and help out for a bit? And there wasn't really an expectation that I would take any bigger role there. But over time, it just got to the point where I felt, it was important for me to help out with this particular site because it was, getting to being an important one. So I did. Eventually I was helping to make policy there with various, and that sort of thing. It just got to the point. I'm hearing an echo of me for some reason.
Okay. I'm not quite sure where that one's coming from, but just keep going.
Oh, all right, never mind. Sorry, I'm just hearing it. I'm looking at the stream page. That explains it. I was just giving it to someone else to look at. So yes, it got to the point where the original owner of the site, Starling, and the programmer of it had said basically, okay, this is a great site, but I can't keep doing it. I need to make some, I want to make some stuff and do things. Are we offline? It looks like it's offline. Am I just crazy? No, never mind.
We're fine for now.
We're good. It got to the point where he was like, I need to make some money. I'm sorry, I can't be here all the time. Can you take it over? I can't do work and work on my dream project and run Inkbunny at the same time. So I said, well, actually, this is a good time for me. I'm not doing anything super, time consuming. Let's give this a go and see how it goes. So that was back in the end of 2013. We had the site, running fairly well, just going along, it's taken a long time for me to get my head around the programming side of it and the administration side of it. So I've been making smaller changes through 2014, and now with 2015, we've got another developer come on, Salmi. And then, of course, Starling has been around, now and then to help out with things. So this release, we've been putting for a few more, features in to this release. We've been putting out the cache throughout the year, this big cache network, covering all of the 6 continents. I think we've got 9 or 10 servers in there, this particular release coming up is a big release. I'm just gonna drop in a few links into chat that are relevant to this. So hold on a sec. So that's one link, and this is the other link. So that's the hardware that we currently have, and some of the features that we're going to be pushing out. So one thing we had requested a lot is filtering. They really want, people really don't want to hear about all the streams and journals that some people put out, but they still want to see their art and comment on their art and say, hey, this is cool. Or maybe they don't like your art, but they want to see your journals. Or maybe they just hate streams totally and they don't want to see them on the site at all. So this is, obviously, a useful thing to not be able to hear some things, and we're putting this into our latest release. Also being able to change your username. So, sometimes, 5 years later, maybe, GreenReaper doesn't sound so good to you, or you want to be Red Reaper, or you want to be a dragon, or something like that. Hey, yes, Raccoon, yes, big release equals things will break. We hope not. That's why we've told you what we're doing, but we haven't released it yet, because it does need a lot of testing. One of the big things that does need testing is the renaming, because not only are we saying, okay, you can change your name, which you could always do. We can always talk to us and say, hey, can you change my name in the database, and we'll do that. But this is actually changing all the previous mentions of your name. So you can do @GreenReaper and it will be a mention of me. Well, that's fine, but what happens when you change your name? Right now, it just turns into a nasty red link. Now, going forward after this release, it will actually convert all of those into a user ID, store it transparently in the background so you don't know about it, then show it back as @GreenReaper. And whenever my name changes, it will just transparently change. And we're going back through the database to change all of the old names that we renamed. So
that's pretty handy.
Is that
pretty
a program
heavy.
that works?
Yeah, we got a little script that was just going through every mention, every comment, literally every comment, every journal comment, every submission, description, etc. Every private message. Which we have to decrypt because they're encrypted in the database, individually encrypted. It goes through all of those and changes all of the old mentions for all of the old names that we know about to use this new format. Yeah. And going forward, we won't need to do that because they'll all be linked to IDs. And so when we change the ID, the username attached to the ID, it'll be fine. So it's just a one-time thing, but it takes a lot of time. Or at least a fair amount of time. So we're going to have to take the site down entirely for probably a few hours sometime next week, if we do it next week. But it's going to be worth it, honestly. And it will probably be when the USA is asleep, so most people won't even notice until they come in and they see these new features. One of the new features that won't be so visible but is still really cool is pre-caching and pre-rendering. So obviously, Inkbunny is in Europe, and one of the reasons we added all of these caches around the world is that so that you don't have to go all the way to Europe to get all of the files, all of the thumbnails, all of the site images, all of the backgrounds, that sort of thing. They come from servers nearby you, linked on that hardware page on WikiFur. However, you still need to come to, you still need to request the files, and they still need to download through your possibly slow internet connection, especially if you're in South Africa. So, wouldn't it be great if you could just have the files already on your system? And yeah, but it needs to know which files. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, we're on this page. We know that the next page is another file in this series or another pool, image in this pool of images, like a folder. So why don't we get that file in the background? So we're now telling your browser, hey, we think that it's likely that they're going to need the next image in this series of images. So go get it, when you've got some time, and if you're not on a metered connection or anything like that.
How you know if someone's on a metered connection? Because I can already see that might be affecting some people.
That's a browser thing. We're just hinting to the browser you might want to get this file. It doesn't have to do it. There's a whole system set up for this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the preloading. Pre-rendering is if we really think that actually you're almost, you're really likely to go to this page, then we will preload the entire page in. Again, this is a browser feature. It currently only seems to work on Chrome. It's meant to work on IE and Edge as well, but it doesn't seem to properly. But half of our users are on Chrome, so that's cool. It will actually load the entire page in a hidden tab that you can't see or use, basically, and it will get all of the resources, all of the images, all of the icons that are needed for that page. It'll hit our main server for the page and go through all the database work, get it all the way back to you. So if you go to the link, then it will just switch the tab into the foreground, and suddenly you're on that page and it's all loaded. So this is useful for the next page in a multi-file submission, the next page in the pool. It's useful for the next page of search results, the next page of latest, the next page of your private messages. You don't have to go to our server for it. It's already in your browser because we told them, hey, go to load the next page in the background.
Nice.
Nice. That's it is nice, and it's fairly simple to do. It would be great if more furry sites did this. I mean, we're not trying to be private about this is some secret source. This is something that any browser can implement, and any website can implement if they just do it. It's just the figuring out how to do it, and just do it. And I would say just do it. If you obviously you need the bandwidth, and our donors and our sponsors have been very helpful there. We've had we've got a bunch of people. It's not always obvious, but Inkbunny runs entirely on donations. We've got a bunch of donors, and we also have some sponsors. Blue Paw Radio and Bad Dragon both sponsor a server in North America each, and those servers are very useful to us because they serve a lot of people. We have about 10 terabytes going out in North America every month. And we do have a virtual server that runs on 10 cents a day, and it's only it pushes 4 of those terabytes, but still.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, that's still.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said I've seen on Inkbunny there are like mentions for people who are sponsors there and past sponsors, etc. How does your sponsor structure work? Is there any sort of perks that they get? Is it like just a voluntary thing? Like how does?
Do you have an artist that does the submissions?
Sorry, could you say that again? We got a sponsor. The way it works is you can give us some money, and we will do things with that money. So we have some internal development costs. We have to rent some servers in places where people aren't sponsoring, and that all costs money. But there are a couple of people who are directly giving us servers, basically, or virtual servers on their server, and we just use the disk space and the bandwidth and the memory to act as a cache.
But
So,
is there any sort of benefit for the people sponsoring you guys on the site?
What they get is a sponsor star, and it's mentioned on there. But we aren't going down the sort of premium membership route. It's DeviantArt core members. We're all core members on Inkbunny. So what you do get is a nice shiny star for like up to a year, depending on how much you've donated, and or a gem if you're really giving us like 4 figures. And after that, you get a leaf to mention that you were a previous donor. And that leaf looks pretty nice as well, I've got to say. We've had some people say, well, I don't want to donate again because I'll lose my leaf and I'll just get a silly star. So maybe we're not doing that quite right, but
maybe you make it the leaf as the donor.
Well, maybe we can have the leaf sort of like slowly crinkle and dry up, like it's getting into autumn.
What?
Yeah, that'd be cool. After a year, it goes away. But yeah, it's just a little thing. I mean, it doesn't actually take that many people to keep us going, especially if the people are like, IT people who say, oh yeah, I can give you $100 or I can give you $250, once a year. It's not a lot of money to some people, and it makes them happy, and it makes all of our members happy because they have a site. It's cool. I'm really, really thankful for all the hundreds of people who have given us some money.
Now the entire idea of like a premium membership and everything like that, and having all of these little perks and you've donated and things like that. I mean, and I don't know, both of us had a previous conversation about this, myself and you, GreenReaper, and then obviously Tumal kind of mentioned his, one wouldn't necessarily say disdain for, but his hesitance towards giving people those kinds of perks and things like that. I mean, I know that yours is pretty much just a sign of, hey, I've donated. Hey, a year later, maybe I need to donate again. I mean, obviously there are no sort of like premium membership sort of deals and things like that. Oh, so more. Oh, read the second half of this.
Yeah, that's totally not what we're trying to do, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to do, but it's not what we're trying to do. We are fine with, saying, okay, we thank you for your donation. We think this person is cool. We'll put it out on Twitter, but we're not giving you a service other than that. And I think that's really important because we're basically a charity other than the official thing of the word. We could run as a charity, and we're not trying to be that commercial site. And I think actually FA would do much better if it did go down that route, and if it did offer certain services that it could only because it's got the size that it could do that. And it could actually be useful to people. It's already doing that in a way for advertisements. I don't think it's a bad model.
Would it benefit that, though? Would that be a benefit to it? Do you really think that it would actually benefit for Affinity?
So, here's the thing. You need to have money to run a site that big. And to hire, you need to pay full-time staff. Inkbunny is lucky because it has me and a few other people who are willing to give the equivalent of being almost a full-time staff to it. It takes maybe 3 people at that level of commitment, about 4 hours a day. So that's not small, especially since those people are technical people. But for FA, it needs those people at full-time. It has 9 people on staff, and really they are doing a full-time job, I am sure. or at least most of them are doing a full-time job if they're doing it right. At supporting the people who are on the site and providing updates and keeping the site up to date. And if they do have more money, it's true that they could do more and they could spend more time on it and hire more people. And I think that's that may be a good thing to happen in the fandom.
But don't you think don't you think the buyover from Invu would sort of make that money available as opposed to do something like
Well, I think the Invu purchase, they're hoping to see a return. And I don't know exactly what that return is. However, they did seem to make it fairly clear that they think that advertising their site is a good thing. They will probably try and integrate Invu a little bit more into. They wanted the audience, but they also want the site to pay for itself, and they want to provide some structure to it. And that's not a bad thing, and maybe they can help out. I mean, this often happens in charities as well. Not every charity. Most charities are focused on their mission. Most small charities, they're really key. They have people who are really keen about doing the thing that they do, and they don't really want to handle finance, and they don't really want to handle all of the tax work that goes into it. That's not what their ability is. So often they have what's called a fiscal sponsor to do that and to give them charitable status and that sort of thing, which they would otherwise have to do on their own, which is a lot of a hassle. And that's basically what FA's got itself into. It has sold out to a bigger company that can, it was always a company. Just to be clear, Ferox Art was always in a limited liability for-profit company. It just didn't really run much as a for-profit company. And so now they've actually sort of sold the site out to a bigger company that will run it as a sort of subsidiary. And hopefully the subsidiary can keep itself afloat. If not, then there might be some trouble down the road. But I don't think they have some super evil plan to get everyone. I don't think they are that evil. They're just trying to make money and to keep itself afloat, and also to get their ads on site.
Okay, fair point.
I mean, essentially, you're kind of saying what Tumo kind of said last week as well. There was no maliciousness behind the move. There was no sort of over-the-top kind of, ooh, these furries, they must all die kind of thing. Over the top anyway.
Yeah.
But one of the questions that Rocket Dog actually has here is, now when you look at the idea of calculating costs, firstly we're going to ask, do you run ads on your, paid-for ads on your website?
Just to hold that question a second, to answer the thing, no, I totally think, in fact I agreed that corporate approach is good, and I suggested to Dragoneer personally, you need to get a grip on this and do it properly. And this is the way he chose to do that. So I don't disagree with that. I think actually it's a reasonable decision, and I'm willing to give them 6 months, a year to see how it goes. We'll have to judge it as it comes out in the course of time. Do they keep the site going? Does it succeed, etc.? They are developing features. Do they come? That sort of thing. So ad block. Inkbunny doesn't do ads, so it's not a concern for us. That's one advantage of not having advertisements on your site. You don't have to worry about people blocking the ads. Literally, there are no ads on Inkbunny. We don't have an intention to add ads on Inkbunny. We might add some kind of promotional tool for our members to promote to other members and the public, but those, we don't intend to be, buy a pack for X amount of dollars. We're providing a service to all artists, including those who can't afford to pay for that kind of thing. And we want to make sure that our members get to see the best art. So it's kind of like we are in support of commercial activity, but we are not trying to be commercial ourselves. So if that makes sense. Again, this might not be the most sensible way to do it. It's not the most capitalist. It's kind of more a socialist approach. We're providing a service for everyone, and from some people who have some money, it's being supported. But it seems to be working out so far, thanks again to the volunteer efforts of the staff and the donors who have a little bit of money and wish their site to go well. I think we've done. We made a good case for donors at the end of last year. We said, if you give us money, we will keep the service going and improve it. And they gave us money. We got over $10,000, and we have bought the servers, for 3 years. We bought another server for 3 years, just we had a little bit more. And we've expanded the cache network. So it's sort of a contract, in a way, social contract. If you support us, we will make it happen. And I think that's one way you can do a site. But another way is we need 10,000 people to give us $50, and in return for that, we'll give them extra features. And that's another way for running the site. And I think both of them are compatible in different sites, and it's interesting to see that the fandom's going that way, and I approve of those options.
I think at the end of the day, the only thing that people are sort of scared of about this whole idea of what do you want to call premium membership is that the standard membership will be diminished at expense of the premium membership, as opposed to the premium membership being additive.
Yeah, and I can understand that, but at the same time, I can also understand that, the reality is that you have to choose somewhere to draw a line. And if you've suddenly given out a lot of free features, and then you realise we can't make money with offering all of these cool features, no one will buy the new thing by itself, then maybe you do have to restrict that. I mean, it's something that I'm glad we don't have to do. We can offer all of our features to all of our members because we don't run that model. And I'm sure the DeviantArt guys would be very glad to be able to say, hey, everyone, you can have infinite account renames, you can have pre-cached images, you can have HTTPS, if everything were free and they didn't have to pay for their staff. But as a practical matter, they are big enough, and they are a big enough site, and they want to do more things, so they have to have right now these features because they've gone down that route. Now, Inkbunny doesn't have all of those things. It has some of those things, and we're gradually adding some, but we don't have the staff to add everything that people want. So we can't offer the level of service that DeviantArt does in some areas. But at the same time, you get what you pay for. We're trying to give you what we can for what you've given us.
Now, I mean, sort of on that sort of line now, I mean, I'm part of a chess website that has around about 1,760,000 players in total on it. And the thing is that, like, of those players, I'm pretty sure that around about 80% of them are non-paying members. And I mean, the way that they've structured it is that the people who are paying members can only play X amount of games, can't send private messages to people, can join a team but can't interact with the private with the team itself unless it's through private messaging. And it's a very, very interesting sort of look at the entire thing. And I mean, it's been running since 2002, if I'm not mistaken. I joined in 2004. And I mean, not recently, but for about the past 2 years, I've been a premium member there, specifically because I enjoy the service that they gave as a free member, to the point that I wanted to be able to contribute more to that site. And I'm assuming that that's sort of like the model that you want to go for, is that it's not that you're restricted completely, it's that you're restricted to, say, 1 or 2 of that amount per day, or per 24 hours, or per week, or depending on what kind of service it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, it is very hard to get the balance right. And if you can do that successfully, you can totally run a great site that people are happy with. You only have a small amount of bitching over the premium features. I'm sure I can see ways which we could do that on Inkbunny. We can already restrict how many PMs you send every hour. We could tighten that up so you can only send one an hour, say. We already have a way of restricting how many submissions you can post, or that sort of thing. So there are already levers in place to do that kind of thing. It's just we don't want to be the guys pulling that, because we don't. That's not the site we want to do. But you can run a site like that, and it does work if you keep in mind that you're trying to make it sort of like a perk. Here's a perk. You can do this extra thing, or you can do this more often, and it's just about getting the balance right. So, and cultivating a good view of the site. I mean, FA's in an unfortunate situation because it's had some bad blood in the past. But if we had like an FA now just coming out of beta, and it's like, oh, we've got this cool site, it's got lots of art, it's got lots of artists, but we need to have money for it. It might, I think the response might be different, to say, well, we understand that, and if you want to offer premium accounts, that's good.
Yeah.
Raccoon said something. I don't think it's unreasonable to charge artists who are making money for using the site a percentage of commission profits could keep the site running even at large scale. Exactly, and that's what Inkbunny started out doing. We started out selling prints and digital downloads, and it worked really well for about 6 months. We were breaking even on site costs, even at a small size. And then, of course, PayPal, PayPal never wanted to talk to us, but there was this other service called AlertPay, which is now called Paysia, and they were providing the payment services, processing for us, and they shut down all furry sites, starting with FA, but also furry and Inkbunny. And they were just taking donations and ads for it, and we were taking actual sales, so we had to stop paying our artists and getting money from our artists, which was really frustrating. So it can be done. The issue is furry stuff, the adult stuff in particular. It's just not. It doesn't work. And F-List had the same issue. It just doesn't work with the card processors, and the people who work with the card processors, they don't allow that kind of content. So if Bitcoin takes off, then sure.
What I mean, like the disparity between the two of them. I mean, the thing is that you have premium accounts for things like I don't know, like XXX rated video sites. You've got everything out there. Tumblr sites doing the exact same thing, taking money through XYZ. I mean, and just the entire thing. Oh, because it's furry that it gets locked down.
Right, but it's all American XXX. It's it's Busty Babes. It's the interracial couples. But there are some things that they don't go in for. They don't go in for art depicting rape. They don't go in for art depicting underage characters. There are some they know, or they feel they will get in trouble for doing. Again, F-List was given a specific list of the things that it could not have on its site. That if they wanted to go ahead with this, and it included all of the non-consensual stuff, it included a lot of the fetishes, and it was just this would gut our site. We can't have that. We are, and that's the decision Inkbunny made. We could block all of these things, or we could not block all of these things and just not process their money. And we decided it's not worth it, just as F-List did. It's not worth it. We'll find another way to make this work. Maybe we can't be that big commercial site that we wanted, but in the end, we've got to make this decision for the best, for our members and for furry fandom, not to censor it.
But I mean, the thing is that in essence, I mean, would you say that allowing that would be a service or a disservice to the fandom itself?
When you say allowing that, what do you mean?
I mean, like, in other words, you said that you can either block it or you can't block it. And obviously you took one pathway. Does that do a better service for the fandom as a whole, towards the public eye? I mean, if somebody finds furry and goes, cool, I'm going to go look for these things just because I'm a curious adult who has children who is into this thing, then then
Okay,
they see all of these.
so now we get into morality.
Yes, on a moral level.
On a moral basis, Inkbunny is fairly amoral. We're like, we actively think that it's okay to discuss and depict all kinds of things in imagination. We do not support the viewpoint that that you should be able to censor other people based on the content that they have, other than some very specific things which we are legally required to do, and we don't like, and the fact that it's human, because we're not that's not our goal. So we do censor. We have decided to censor humans rather than furries, basically.
Okay, that's a fair point. I mean, that's a good sort of divide that you can go on to. And I mean, like as Rackman says, drawings are not real life situations, but even so, they depict real life situations in an artistic way. And at the end of the day, like, where do you draw that line? I mean, you look at people like, say, things like, goodness knows, anything on the just before you get to the deep web. I mean, you get things like what's the term? Starts with a G. I'm not going to say the entire thing, but the thing is that I mean, like they depict a very, very interesting sort of perspective. Does that not? And I mean, I'm going to say
this. So we're talking about the one with lots of blood in.
There are large amounts of blood in it, and the thing is that I mean, as much as it's being depicted and things like that, irrespective, and I know that we can't necessarily, we won't, and we can't tell a person that this is wrong, but they look at it at any rate because they like it, or whatever they want to do. And I mean, this is a very, very fine line that I'm treading here. But the thing is that, I mean, at one point, or at what point can one believe that allowing it to proliferate also allows it to trigger other people's inner ability to do that? And again, like I said, it doesn't have to do with the idea that they are predisposed to it, and the fact is that you cannot be held liable for it. But the thing is that, like, at one point, can we draw a line that says, we are now enabling this?
Yeah, well, dude, this is the GTA is a murder simulator argument all over again.
Yeah.
Is the sort of
and that's basically the situation. Do you actually have? At what point? I would say at no point. At no point should you apply that reasoning. I mean, I don't think it's actually true that and it's certainly not proven in research. Whenever we look at the laws, the discussion for these kinds of laws that come up, usually for underage subjects, and actually all the you look at the discussions in the Houses and Commons and that sort of thing, and they say, well, we don't have any research backing this up, but we think it's really it really is a big thing, and you have to do something about this. And some people are getting away with having material that is not illegal, but it makes it enables their fantasies, and it's like, okay, that's great, they have these fantasies and they're managing to serve them by not doing the bad thing.
Exactly. I mean, but that's what I'm trying to get at is that, like,
well, and I have this argument with some artists. They're like, oh, we really like your site, and we love being able to do these pictures of dragonlings having incest with each other or whatever, but we don't like the human cuts. Can you stop showing, like, Bart with a naked butt or something like that? No genitals, just in a naked butt with wearing high heels or something like that. And you'd be like, okay, cool, these guys have a fetish. That's cool. That's their thing. But so what? It's not harming you. It's not harming your kid. You don't have to look at it. We have these filters for it. And I think that's the thing. We have a technical solution to that. we can help you not see it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what I think. That's where we are. If you don't want to see it, then we will provide the features. And in fact, you have to turn on ratings above general or mature violence. If you don't want to, then don't do it. Make sure that you have your block list, that sort of thing. So other than that, I mean, that's my perspective. I don't think that depictions of things should be illegal. I don't actually agree with some of the rules that they have in like Germany, that you can't have things, because I don't think that stops discussion of it, but also because I think that makes it harder to bring it out in the open and say, actually, no, we disagree with you and here's why. I'm okay with people having a reasoned argument about things, but not cutting off.
And again, like that's sort of where I was going towards is that like, and it literally has to do with, I mean, where does one draw the line? Obviously, there shouldn't be a line, obviously, because there are specific things that people that enable people to do that without having to do that. Therefore, it does not enable them. But as soon as you start doing real depictions of that, then they begin to move into that kind of realm of things that could lead towards something else. I don't necessarily know. Rakuin kind of mentioned that.
I think the USA has a good policy on this. At least it did have last I checked. Their view is that you can't have something that is advertised as something that is illegal, and that is illegal because it could it depicts something that has harmed someone else. On a bait, and that means that you can't have virtual stuff that is advertised as this because it might enable the market for that. But that also means that if you just draw something and you say, well, here's this thing, I think it's really cool, people might be disgusted at you, but they can't throw you in jail for it because you haven't hurt anyone. And that's, I think, the right way of doing it. So anyway, that's my view, and that's probably probably how Inkbunny will be dealing with it in the future, and as we have in the past. We're very consistent on this, unless it's something that we don't host because it's not on topic in a way, not what we're trying to do, then we're allowing it.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair perspective. I mean, like, it's the same thing as to it's the same thing as to metal to a lot of people. It's like, oh, Slipknot makes people kill other people because of why? It's lyrics that are taken in a specific manner. It's a specific, but then again, that does happen to have a little bit more leeway to it. I mean, if it is a depiction of something and you look at it and you go, that is the reason why. It's a lot more difficult to sort of defend it sometimes, as much as you want to and as much as it is possible to. It does become difficult.
Yeah.
But I think, if anything, maybe we can just change tack a little bit. And we've spoken about Inkbunny. I think we've been very thorough on that, or at least you've been very thorough on that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'd like to sort of talk about is maybe talk about WikiFur a little bit more. I mean, I know that you're not necessarily there as much as you used to be.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, you've got a very, very good moderation team going on there. I mean, I recently also made a page for one of the furs that we actually had on the podcast. Slate Dragon, hello. And like within 24 hours, it had already been edited down to, these are the bare facts. This is what you need to have. That's it. And I was like, cool. So, I mean, I fixed it from there. And I mean, what 24-hour turnaround time. So you've got a great team working on WikiFur right now. What are the sort of plans ahead for WikiFur? How exactly does it stay afloat?
So WikiFur is fairly cheap to run. I would say maybe $50 a month, maybe less. The way it works is that we have someone called Tim Duru in France, who's a long-time meerkat fursuiter. who's also known for doing fursuit TV and a lot of other sort of like fursuiting photo archives and that sort of thing, the fursuit database. And he offered to host us on a virtual server, basically using FreeBSD, which is kind of like Linux but not. And the way we pay him and we go half each on the server hosting costs. We actually get a pretty good deal out of it, considering the thing we get for it. And we also use Cloudflare, although we're going to be phasing that out. So right now that isn't running on any donations from people. It has in the past, and we could do in the future, but we haven't really needed it. It's not on the level of Inkbunny in that sense, it just keeps on running. It's got 20 languages. If necessary, we'll add another one. We might actually have to do so because I don't know if you're aware, but in Southeast Asia there's a lot of new furry conventions springing up and that sort of thing. So we might find ourselves doing like Taiwanese or something like that, or no, sorry, Taiwanese is Chinese. Thailand, whatever language is there, Indonesian, for example. We if we're expanding, we're going to be in that area, I think. It's a little tricky for me because not only do I not always write, I'm not the person doing English all the time. At least I can speak English, but I can't speak Japanese, or at least not very well through Google Translate. And so what usually happens is there's one or two interested people who want to run a wiki in this language, or at least to try it. And so I give them the power to do that and say go for it, and I provide the technical side of things, and I still do all the technical stuff on WikiFur, but I don't run the sites on a day-to-day basis, and I think that's honestly the model that works for this, because I can only spend so much time on each site. And the same for Flayrah, actually. I did used to write a whole load of posts on there, but I just can't do that now. I can't do everything. And right now, I think Inkbunny needs my time more. But in the future, who knows? But I can still keep those sites going on a technical basis fairly easily. And WikiFur actually did get some upgrades this year. We moved it onto a new server. It's got a new fairly new versions of the main media wiki software used by Wikipedia. It's got all of the good PHP things going on. So it's not like it's going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere particularly. It's going on. It keeps on going like Wikipedia is, and it will. And it's my intention to do that perpetually.
Is there a reason why you chose the Wikipedia layout?
So the layout is just part of the software, and actually we use an older version of it, at least on the English one. Each language can choose its own, but really it's like, it works for them, it should probably work for us, and people know how to use it who are wiki experts, so let's go with that. Actually, one of the reasons we moved away from WikiFur, which was our original host, was that they wanted to change the layout to something they could monetize better, and that would screw with all of our pages, and that it was clear that they were just going to go down the more ads route, at least for a time. And it just wasn't what we wanted to do. We didn't want to run. We wanted to run a community, yes, but we ultimately didn't want to be beholden to them. And we were running into limitations as well. For example, multiple languages, it could be done, but it was tricky. We had to go to them. Ultimately, for someone like me, I was in the lucky position of being technically able to run my own wiki farm, and so I did. But on the other hand, it could have gone horribly wrong. For example, the Transformers wiki made the same decision. They left Wikia 9 months before we did, and just about as we were leaving, they had a disk crash and they lost everything. So they then had to go crawling back to Wikia, to get the backup and restore all their images, and they kept on going on their own site. But it was, this is what can happen if you don't, do it professionally. Then there is this risk, and I think a lot of people don't realise that about furry fandom sites, that they aren't all run professionally. They are run on a volunteer basis for the most part. And it's really hard to say, well, how do I know how reliable my site is? Unless you're on the inside, you're not qualified to say that. Even if you're technically competent, you're probably not qualified to say, are the backups being done, that sort of thing. We do have backups on Inkbunny, for example, and they go off to several places, and that sort of thing. But we could just say that, and no one would know the difference unless you actually were in the site running it on a technical basis. So, I mean, how many FA users really know how FA works? How many, how many of them know how many backups there are? You just aren't told this, and maybe the information is because you don't need to know, or it might change, or they're not proud of it, or whatever. But that's the kind of thing. Unless if you are a company, then it makes more sense to have that kind of backups, because ultimately it's your money on the line. Whereas for furries, the temptation is, I'll do that later, or I'll do security later, or it's only when it becomes a feature that it becomes something that people concentrate on. And actually, Inkbunny was high security from the start. First, because it was other people's money we were concerned about. We were actually taking money, and we were giving out money on the site. But also because it was a competitive feature at the time. It was what was it? Yifgate or whatever. The whole the leaking of PMs on FA through the use of administrator accounts, and so we have high security on staff accounts. You can only log in from certain IPs if you're a staff member. You have to have our restrict IP function enabled, and you have to have a reasonable password and that sort of thing. It becomes a competitive feature, and so does performance, and so does maybe backups are important too. If a lot of sites have gone down recently, you could say, well, we back up this way. But if you are not running something professional, if it's not your livelihood, then it's not such a big concern, and people are going to be more interested in, does this have this cool feature?
Scratch? Anything?
I'm just listening in for now. But what happened with this is the first time I'm hearing about what Yifgate. Is this just someone who
Oh, sorry, I remember what it was called. Furry leaks. So furry leaks is, and I think the site might still be up. Basically, let me look it up on here. Basically, FA had an administrator account compromised, and they ended up losing access, giving out access to private messages, and let me see if that is here. It's probably on WikiFur somewhere. They lost a large amount of private messages to and from all of the administrators, a lot of the big name artists. I think at least 40 users got compromised in total, and they had full access, to get any private message. It was, in the note system, and it was so. In response to that, FA made it so that you can't. Yes, Rekurin has linked the place, and it is still up. In response to that, FA implemented additional security features, and so did other sites. But they still don't have full HTTPS. They say it's coming. Incidentally, DeviantArt doesn't either. They don't use HTTPS on the site. And I had a look at that, and I think I know why. They are using a service called CloudFront by Amazon, which is basically a caching system like Cloudflare. And it charges more for HTTPS requests than HTTP requests because they are processed. They cost more processing. Therefore, DeviantArt, might be charged more by them. Probably would be charged more by them if it switched over to it fully. So they don't yet. But at Inkbunny, we just switched all of the links to DeviantArt to HTTPS anyway. So at least when they're going there, it will be secure. After that, we can't. Yes, Raccoon is right. Yes, you can force HTTPS on FA. You can force HTTPS on DeviantArt if you have the right program, I'm sure. At least they have the server there. But it's just, they haven't updated everything to work with it. And if you click a link, it will take you out of HTTPS and that sort of thing. But that's just an example of, this is how sites do features. They do it based on what they see a need for. So, for example, SoFurry sees a need for a better uploader. So they'll be improving their. I think Tumal was hinting that they might have drag and drop. Well, that's cool. And if it works out, then maybe Inkbunny will eventually have drag and drop, and FA will have drag and drop as well. This is how you keep going. You push the site and the fandom forward a little bit more, which is cool.
If you consider it, both FurStream and Furry FM are both on HTTPS sites.
Yeah, and it has gotten to the point where it's a general good practice, and you do it, but not, and if you aren't doing it, then probably people will be less likely to go, to you in a time. This is how sites fall behind. For example, VCL could have kept up with all of the stuff that FA was doing. It could have remained competitive. It could have added comments. It could have added, social features, but it wasn't in a position to do that. I think that's the same thing with Inkbunny. Inkbunny could have sort of kept on going without Starling at the head of it at the end of 2013. He could have said, well, I can't do this. And I could have said, well, I can't do this either. Let's just keep going and see what we can do. And without making a commitment to it, it could have kept going, and the site would have remained as it was in 2013. But it could have stayed that way until 2018. And by then it wouldn't be competitive with other sites that were keeping on going. And this is how sites get bigger or smaller. You have to keep going. You have to keep running to keep up with your audience, to keep up with the demands. Yeah. Because otherwise you won't be. It's no good being technically great and no audience, but it's also no good having an audience and not being technically great, because otherwise you won't have an audience eventually.
Got to show some Silicon Valley hustle.
Yes, and it helps if you're. Most of the sites I know have strong technical leadership. Most of the successful sites I know, and I think you do need that. Either you have to have, someone at the top who is technically minded, comp sci degree or something like that, or you have to have someone that the owner trusts to do that. And again, that's more of a corporate method, and that works too. Don't get me wrong. You don't have to be a programmer to run a site. It just helps. But you do have to have programmers, and you do have to have administrators, and they're not the same thing. And that sort of stuff. And you can't always get that in one person.
Yeah, no, that's tough.
Essentially, that's kind of no. It is an interesting sort of perspective, and I think that it's important that it actually happens. One of the things that I also want to talk about is now, with the entirety of WikiFur and everything out there, and what I kind of do want to ask you is that what was the purpose behind Flayrah to begin with, and has that changed since I think you took over ownership? Do you do the exact same thing? How do you deal with it? Do people still visit Flayrah, or do they start going to adjective species?
So you've got to rewind back to 2008, 2009. We'd done WikiFur basically by that point. WikiFur was not, perfect, but it was at the point where we had covered a lot of the stuff. And we were looking around and saying, well, what's happening now? And we found that it wasn't enough to, there wasn't really much furry news going on, and there were important things that weren't being written about. And so, there was this site called furrynew.ws, and it was doing sort of links to some things, and Flayrah had been doing some links, but it had mostly been spam for several years, and there really wasn't a good news site out there. And so it was basically the same. I found myself in the same situation. There's a gap in the market, as it were, as I did for WikiFur. There was no furry wiki before WikiFur. There wasn't a good furry news site at the time in 2008, 2009. So I tried to move WikiFur in that direction with something called WikiFur News. And the idea, let me just get you a link for that. The idea was to try and incorporate news into WikiFur. So we had the whole thing with, how is this going to work? So we had multiple editing news articles. I don't know if you've ever seen Wiki News. They had something similar. They were run by Wikimedia, the same people who run Wikipedia, and they basically did news about everything worldwide on a wiki, and they had special modifications to the wiki software to do that. And I thought, hey, let's try this. I'd already written a few articles for them about furry stuff, so it was like, well, let's do it the other way. Yes, and Raccoon has shaken his head. Yes, it's not a secure link because Google, I just copied that from Google. You can actually access that securely, and in fact, you probably should. There we are. But the idea was that we would provide the neutral news for the first draft of history, and then incorporate that into articles. And it kind of worked. It really, ultimately, we got a lot done. Let me get you a nice little link. And in fact, I imported it to Flayrah. So let's see. And it worked out for several years, but we ran into the issue that it wasn't the best format, and that was because people had different ideas of what news should be, and we wanted to give them the power to write their own articles. We wanted opinion articles. We wanted the whole we wanted the whole range of things. We wanted reviews, and we also wanted to be on Google News, and Google News refused this based on the fact that we didn't have a regular editorial process. So I was thinking about this at the time, and end of 2009 rolled around, and then I heard that Flayrah was going to go away, and it already, I just happened to hear about this because it hadn't been a big thing, so okay, as Raccoon notes, the third story on WikiFur News, or the third last story on WikiFur News, is about a security breach, which on Furcadia. But yeah, that's yes, but that was the kind of thing. We were trying to do proper news on WikiFur, and it just didn't quite fit the format. So when this opportunity came along, and I had to push at the previous owner and say, hey, don't let this die. Let me give it a go. It can't hurt, right? Okay, you're not going to hurt your good name of your thing. It's been spammed for 4 years. I didn't say that, but it's not going to hurt it. Let's give it a go. I can look at my past history. I've already done this. I can improve it, and so I did that over 2 weeks. I wrote a website, a CMS, using the Drupal framework, and it worked out. I mean, I posted some news. I imported all the WikiFur news articles that you can see there, and it worked out. We started getting more people, visitors. We started eventually
Fireworks?
posting. Oh, sorry. Are you hearing fireworks? Yes. So it is actually a weekend for fireworks in the UK. We have. It's not Burning Man. It's Guy
Burning
Fawkes Night.
Man.
I thought that
Guy
was the
Fawkes
5th.
weekend, bonfire night weekend.
Okay.
So there are a few fireworks out there, but there was more earlier on in the week. So yeah, and that worked. And in fact, we won best news magazine for several, couple of years, eventually. But it took a lot of work to get to that point individually, and I couldn't spend all of that time forever on it. So eventually we've gotten to the point where it's at the point, it's at a good point. It's technically good enough. It's not the perfect site in the world. It still looks kind of like a blog. We could make it better, but it's not worth doing that because, the point is to get the good articles. And we've got a few people who are putting out good articles. We've got Cross Afflictions managing the editorial workflow. It has a lot of instructions on how to write a good article. We've got links everywhere. So it's going again. It's like WikiFur. It's in a good enough place, but we're not trying to be everything. And there is room for. And if you go to the bottom of Flayrah, Flayrah's main page, you can see that. If you scroll down all of the cool articles to the bottom, and obviously look at this later as well. But if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see furries in the media. You'll see Fur Starter, Thursday, Adjective Species, Marth, Dog Patch Press, Gaming Forever, the Furry Reddit, Claw and Quill, Infonation. There's this whole ecosystem out there that is lots of specialization. And so, for example, Adjective Species has considerative articles. They have essays. Marth is about furry comics. Dog Patch Press is one person trying to be, Patch Patchwork is trying to be gonzo journalist on furry. You have Fur Starter, which is all about the kickstarting and crowdfunding. You have Furries in the Media, which is about media coverage. Information is mostly about the comics. Claw and Quill is about reviews. Furry Reddit, who knows, and Gaming Forever is about games. So you have this. Furry has become big enough to have separate views about different topics, and I think that is great, and that's where we wanted to be. And Flayrah is the place for hard news in a way. At least that's what I thought, and that's how I ran it. But Cross Affliction might be going down a different route, and we'll see how that goes.
One of the things that I do want to ask here is that there is a gap in respect to Furry News Network, where you don't have them on here. Is that because they requested not to be on here, or
they've gone? Furry News Network isn't there anymore. I don't know
when
if
did
you
they
knew
when
that.
did they go away? Because I still
That was about there was an article on Flayrah. How could you miss that?
I don't read Flayrah just yet.
Well, maybe you should have been reading Flayrah and not Furry News Network. We was just using all of our stories. That's basically my position. You should have been reading Flayrah. But we did have a whole piece on it. Here we are. FNN ceases operation in wake of hack attack after 4-year run. There we go. Let me link that in there.
Oof.
That's horrifying. Because I still, and I mean the people who did content creation for those people. What's happened to them?
So they didn't really have many people doing content creation, especially not after 4 years. Basically, they had originally started out in like 2011, and they did try and do that, but eventually they turned into an aggregator. And an aggregator is great as long as it stays up, as long as that's what you want to do. It wasn't really what they wanted to do, but the guy running it had some medical issues, as you can see there, and ultimately they couldn't run it the way I had run Flayrah for 4 years by then. They couldn't do that, and they had to leave it on autopilot, but they also couldn't do the technical stuff, and they couldn't keep it up to date. And WordPress gets hacked all the time, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually they decided, well, I'm just not bothered. It's not worth it for me anymore. I can't do it right now. I'm sorry, I go ahead to close. I hope Flayrah never gets to that point, and I hope if it does, I'll be able to give it on to someone else. As honestly, Flayrah, you know, that's how I got Flayrah. You know, the thing about these community sites is you have to be willing to give them up or move on, or something, and they have to be in a position where you can do that. I think that's your responsibility as a community runner. WikiFur is good enough for me to say, okay, you handle this technically, and you handle this editorially, and I could move on. I could not be there anymore. I am still there doing the technical stuff, but that's because I'm the best person for it and I still have time for it. Flayrah, same thing. I've kind of moved on. It used to be super important to me to make that happen. I'd still like to make that happen, but there are now more important things in my life. So I'm doing Inkbunny more. In a few years, maybe Inkbunny will not be the most important thing, but I will have tried to build a team to make it happen. I think we've had some success there, and there are now 3 people doing programming on it. There is one sort of like one person who has joined at the last year and has been getting up to speed, and they are ultimately probably going to be able to, maybe they can run their own development team in a little while. They had the original developers come back and helped out a lot, and they got me, who's learned a lot, and I've learned a lot of administration that way as well. So but my job as the owner and the leader and the administrator is to make sure that everyone else can do their job, and that if I'm not there, that it can be passed on. And I must say, for Inkbunny, Starling has done a great job in that, because he made it into a situation where it could be handed on, and he was willing to do that as well, which a lot of people aren't. So there is one site called ArtSpots, which I was disappointed to see went away, because it was a furry PG art site, and I think there is still a gap there for that.
Yeah.
Each of the furry art sites, they fill a niche, and if they don't have a niche, they don't do so well. And I think you've seen that with some furry sites, that they maybe attract an audience for a time, but that audience goes away because it doesn't have there's no unique selling proposition. And you can judge for yourself which site I'm thinking of there. But in terms of ArtSpots was very much the sort of like Yerf-alike. And in fact, it had an archive of Yerf, which I now run because the administrator passed it on to me. But they didn't pass on ArtSpots. They wanted that name to die with them, as it were. And it just is, the Furry Connection North people felt that they couldn't run the thing anymore, so it had to close. Or Furfright is another example. There were conventions in Michigan in the USA, and in I forget the other state. I think it's one of the eastern ones in the USA, and Connecticut. And those conventions basically could have kept on going if they were run in the way, if they were handed over in the way that was meant to happen as a charity, because they were both charities. But actually, they decided, we're not going to do this anymore. And I don't think that was right. They should have handed on to other things. But that's the mark of a truly mature organisation. You don't need to be there. It's great that you're there and you're really important. But ultimately, the organisation could survive if you weren't there. And I don't know.
It's a testament to the structure of the organisation that it can survive without one or two of its key members.
Right. And you've also got to have the will to do that, the will to hand it on, the will to risk someone doing bad things with your baby. I mean, again, you've got to give Starling props for that. I could have really screwed up his site. He had some confidence that I wasn't going to do that, but it was ultimately his decision to do that or not to do that. And it's something that you have to think about. It's a good idea. If you're running a site, who would you give it to if you weren't able to run it anymore? because that is ultimately going to have to happen. That will happen one day. You won't be able to run that site anymore. Who is your next in line? And if you don't have that, that's your first priority as the administrator, to figure out who that will be, because otherwise you're in a bad situation, even if you don't fix it.
Now I have a random, possibly maybe lighter tone question. I mean, you have a very intricate, let's say well thought out WikiFur page, which I did use to write out your blurb a little bit. How difficult is it to actually write your own WikiFur page and to be constructive at the same time?
Yeah, it's tricky. You have to remember it's not your page, it's a page about you.
Yeah.
So, but also that you are someone who knows yourself well, and that you can, mention things which other people might not have noticed, that you think are important, and you're a person in the fandom, so it's worth doing. So I would say it's a good thing to try it, but be aware. You might want to try writing a few other people's articles first.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I started with Slate, actually, because I kind of want to get to that point, but I don't actually want to write my own article,
right?
Because I can't be objective about myself.
Right. You can try and think of yourself as a third party, and that helps. You can try and look at other articles about people and see what they have, and say, is there an equivalent thing for me? Are there external links that are important? Are there? You can try and write an essay about yourself. What is the historical actions? Are there interviews of you? Have you, that you can link? Can you pull out information from those as references? You see a whole bunch of references in my article, and they're linked to specific things to back up those things. Because often in stuff like this, in interviews, someone, I will have said something, and that shows an opinion, and that's how you can link opinions in if you really think that's important.
Cool.
But also, things. I think it's a good thing to do, because hey, you're saying this is what's important to me, even if other people don't think so, and that can be an educational experience in itself, seeing what other people think isn't relevant to an article about you.
That's a fair point. Now, I know that we're running about maybe 5 minutes. We can talk about this. Now, you've worked, and we'll probably want to talk about it in detail maybe a bit later, but you worked at Anthrocon for 2 years, 2007 to 2009.
3 years.
3 years. Yeah. 2000. Okay, fine. I had to do math. But one of the things that I kind of want to ask you is that now you said that you worked in the lost and found area. Was that the only job that you did? Were there other jobs?
Yeah, it wasn't the only job at it. I was working in convention operations. So these are the people you go to if something is wrong and you don't know how to fix it. And it's not just the people, it's everyone in the convention. It's not just the customers, as it were. So we are the people who they go to if there are no plug boards. You say, oh my God, there's no plug boards. On the radio, a call will come in. We need plug boards. From the the department head, and it's convention operations job not to do it necessarily, but to make it happen. So there was a lot of that. There were people.
So you tell somebody else to do it,
right? Or we did it ourselves. Maybe we do have plug boards, and we can. It's the fastest thing is for us to go down there and make it happen. But actually, you're most important. You're in a kind of a command situation. And that it is useful to learn if you have proper tutoring there. It's a command situation. You're saying, "Hey, I need you to do this, and I need you to do that. Can you make it happen?" Think of at the head of the organisation there is Uncle Kage, and he was convention operations for the time. He was the head of convention operations for a long time. Eventually, he passed that on to Giza, for example. And so. It's just you're not doing everything, but you're making everything happen. But lost and found as well. Yes, that literally at the end of the day, it comes to you. you're a central place, you need to deal with it. We had some very interesting things handed in, like
That's the
laptop.
question that I wanted to ask, because
Yeah.
we tend to sort of ask.
What's the interesting
Hey?
things?
Yes, what are the
so
interesting things?
very interesting things. Oh yes, no. It was mostly badges, pens, that sort of thing. You know, little accoutrements, fluffy ears, tails. But we had some bags, we had some laptops, we had some tablets, we had things that people brought in and left out, and they didn't realise they needed. Not anything like that, really.
No.
But
What
but that sort of
what is the most laughable thing that has been left there?
Yeah.
Oh God. I don't know. I didn't think about it at the time, and I didn't see them all. But actually, if you go, there are some posts about that Anthrocon did post occasionally in past years about these are the things that have been left behind. If you don't claim them, they will be left out on a table for anyone to take the next year, and that's what happened. So you could have a look at those. But to go back on a more serious note, it's not just lost and found, and you are the people who will call 911 if a fursuiter is throwing up in green bile in the fursuit lounge, which is what happened once. They had a kidney stone. They had a very bad convention, but they did live, so that's good.
Yay! Wow, kidney stones. Jeez, that's not something you just sort of walk around with. That's weird.
Yeah. It was not great for them, but and it was the first time I'd called the emergency services, so you learn things in this kind of job.
Very on the fly, it seems.
And kudos to Giza for giving me that opportunity. Unfortunately, the reason I left, it was sort of a mutual understanding. It was tricky when I was writing news articles about Anthrocon to be a staff member at Anthrocon. There was one article in particular that they didn't like, and we had a long conversation about it. And ultimately, the end of that conversation was I was no longer working with Anthrocon as a mutual thing. But that's one of the decisions. You've got to make decisions sometimes. Which things is more important to you? What are your important principles? What is your time being spent on? And sometimes you have to say, well, I can't do that.
Fair. One of the conventions that you went to was Furry Weekend Atlanta 2008, and that was obviously the year after Tumbles the Stair Dragon. What was the reaction? Did people actually remember Tumbles the Stair Dragon in 2008 in comparison to 2007?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of conversation about that, and we had a WikiFur article about that. And in fact, that was the one time we had Kage come onto WikiFur that I can recall to complain about it. He said we shouldn't be writing an article about this person. And I think our position was if we keep the real name out of it, then that's fair. But other than that, we should be writing about this because it tells a story, and it's a story of interest to other furs. You can say, well, you shouldn't be interested in that kind of thing. Well, that's not our position. And WikiFur has never been that kind of place. Just as Flayrah hasn't been that kind of place. You can write about something that interests you. Some people might say, oh, we shouldn't have an article about this. It makes the furry fandom look bad. I say, no, not writing about it and censoring would make the furry fandom look bad. And that's my personal values.
Fair. And pretty much on that bombshell, because I wanted a bombshell for this, was pushing for it so hard. Anyway, one of the things that we'd like to say to you, GreenReaper, is thank you again for joining us on the podcast. It's always good to hear from you.
It's always good to be here.
Yeah, always good. And we'd like to thank the people on the Furry FM for listening to us. Also the people from First Stream, of which I will name now. Raccoon, Rocket Dog, GreenReaper, thank you again. White Wolf, Glitch Mad Dragon, Arashi, and Jacktail. There were a whole bunch of other people on earlier, some including Tox, Kane, Scratch, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know anybody else. Did you see anyone else?
Not particularly.
Doge for listening, of course. Doge is always listening, never commenting because he can't. But yeah, thank you guys all for supporting us again. One of the things that I do want to talk about today is that we actually started running an art competition within the South African WhatsApp groups, or within one particular South African WhatsApp group, which involved our fursonas as ponies.
Which eventually evolved into Jedi somehow.
Yes, no, it didn't evolve there. It was going to go in that direction, specifically because of a previous conversation that we'd had about the fact that I was in fact a female character in most games that I play. Her name is Metania Wheelos. She started out as a Jedi, and then eventually somehow I came out as a female Pegasister, I think is the term.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so
Jedi
that
Pegasister.
Jedi Pegasister, exactly. And then I decided to, without your consent or Anpu's
without my consent. I know.
You got some good art out of it. Shut the hell up.
As much as I appreciate it, and I do appreciate it, seriously. It's
of course you appreciate
out of
it.
2 franchises that I have 0 stake in.
Next thing, by the way. But any case, what will happen is that next week, if we find time to do that in a podcast that we'll be doing, those of you who are listening, please keep your eyes and ears open on our Tumblr site, on our Twitter site, on any other media sense that we have. Just look for south-afrifur, south-afrifur, one word, south space afrifur, one word, or one word, 2 words. But yeah, next week we're gonna have Uncle Kage on. It's gonna be a bumper edition of the South Africa podcast. Obviously Anpu will also be there for next weekend. But yeah, Sunday, same time, with Uncle Kage. And yeah, we really hope that we'll see you guys there. Once again, GreenReaper, we really enjoy having you on the show, listening to your perspectives on specific things. And I mean, obviously, this time around we had a far more metered conversation, and as in comparison to the past. And I think it was a very good podcast. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of things. And it's good to get different perspectives from different people. Maybe in the future try putting 2 or 3 people together and see how they bounce off each other. But it works out quite well.
Yeah. One of the things that I do want to say to Rakuin is that he may ask that question as many times as he wants to in respect to why Uncle Kage skipped his talk at Eurofluence. I will not pay party to that question. Thank you very much. And on that bombshell, thank you very much for listening to South Africa Podcast. We really hope that you guys enjoyed the podcast in general, and we hope to see you guys next week.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one next week. So tune in.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Welcome to the South Africa Podcast here at 8 o'clock.